Guys, welcome to a very exciting episode of TFL Talking Trucks podcast. I'm Andre, and with me is my co-host,
Roman. Nice to see you, Andre. And who else we got here?
And we have a very special guest. This week, we're talking all about the new 2020 Ford Super Duty, and we have Aaron Bresky from Ford, who is a vehicle engineering manager for the brand new truck. Hi, Aaron.
Hi guys, how are you today?
Thank you for taking the time to speak to us about everything about the new truck. Thank you for joining TFL Talking Trucks podcast. If you love pickup trucks or big full-size SUVs, if you love trailering, towing, and going off-road, this is the right place to be. Together we can make this podcast the most popular ever. So Roman, recently we did our Gold Hitch Awards for 2020. And we tested all of the latest new dually trucks. This was Ford, GM, Ram. And in the very end, we gave the award, the prize, to the 2020 Super Duty.
Yeah, I mean, it was a monster going up the Ike Gauntlet, the world's toughest towing test. I got to tell you, whatever magic you did in that Super Duty to put out that much power and that much torque, is terrifying. You know, I remember when you could barely tow 15,000, that's how old I am, with the heavy duty or Super Duty truck, and now we're pulling well over 30,000 pounds like it's, you know, like it's nothing. And that is really astounding when you think about it, and terrifying because that's a boatload of weight. Literally, that is a boatload of weight.
Yeah, that sure is, Roman, right? I was very impressed with how all the vehicles ended up doing, in fact, right? As you ended up saying, the weight with 30,000 pounds is just immense. A lot of people don't realize how much weight that is. And just to see the trucks perform that well, it's amazing, yes. Yeah, so the Super Duty was all about capability, right? We really raised the bar on the capability and the power and also the technology, right? So as we know, the capability of the Super Duty is just incredible, right? So in 2017, it was a very strong truck. And then before we even launched the truck, we were working on, hey, how to even improve it further for 2020, right? So 17, when I was launching the truck, we were working also in parallel on what to do for 2020. So pretty amazing there.
So let's talk about that. How has the truck changed? What were the biggest differences between the 2017 and the current one? What did you upgrade? And let's like delve deep. I mean, tell me exactly, you know, in terms of chassis, in terms of power plant, in terms of transmission. Let's kind of go through all of it. Oh
yeah, you bet, Roman. So you know, it's got a new look. We've all seen the new look, and with that new look comes the grills, right? When we ended up setting out to deliver 475 and 1050, we needed proper cooling. And along with that cooling, we just started right with the much larger grill that we've seen on the DRW trucks. And then along with that comes upgraded cooling fan, upgraded fan drive, all of that. And then on top of that even is improved seals for that whole cooling pack to perform as good as it does. And that's just getting the cooling for the powertrain. The other aspect is the induction system. So new for 2020 is a different induction system that has two openings to get that fresh air in. And that's a portion of why it performs so well, regardless of the environment, whether it's out on the Ike 11,000 feet, or whether it's at sea level, whether it's flat, or whether it's pulling up a mountain. That was a key focus for us. So many other things too, Roman, that you touched on, right? The chassis revised for the increased load. There was ride improvements. There was the electronically hydraulic actuated steering, right? So many aspects that we focused on to bring the 2020 up to the next level of capability and performance, and even technology. My gosh. So I have to actually take a breath here. Right, so many things to talk about. So with the technology, we know that it was the Pro Trailer Backup Assist that we put onto the Super Duty, is combined with trailer reverse guidance, and that was a very big challenge. When we were working through development, it was first a line of sight that we were thinking to get it available on SRW primarily, and we struggled a bit early on to get it to DRW. In fact, at some point in time in our program delivery, there was a thought that we wouldn't be able to offer that technology on our King Tour, the F450 pickup. So could you imagine that? So we all chipped in and worked together to go and say, hey guys, how can we get this key technology on that F450 pickup as well? And as you know, we ended up succeeding at that. So,
well, that's
yeah. I just want to see where else you want to go, or what any of those aspects that you want to touch on, right? And we can go in deeper.
Yeah, well, I wanted to unpack it a little bit more, right? You mentioned first the look, right? Yes. So the look of the truck, but it's subtle. The differences are, I think, are quite subtle. So the grille is a little bit wider. It's more angled where it meets the headlights, right? But if you were just a casual observer, just the truck passing by, I would say you may not notice exactly the grille differences. Is that fair to say?
Well, it really is what you're looking at. I think we've accomplished the good balance of when you look at it, man, it's very recognizable that it's Super Duty. And it is, in one regard, subtle, right? It's an improvement in our prior 2017, right? So there is a unique look and headlights and those types of things. And I think it is unmistakably Super Duty when people see it.
So next you mentioned the numbers, right? So you mentioned 475 horsepower, and then you mentioned 1,050 pound-feet of torque. And this is the third generation 6.7 liter Power Stroke V8, which is a turbo diesel. So tell us, go deeper inside the diesel now. Just tell us kind of the updates were made there.
Yeah, so Andre, so many things that Dave Ives and our team ended up doing, right? We had Dave Ives on the original reveal going through every element of what was done within that engine. But high level, right, we have new turbo, we have steel pistons, we have higher fuel pressure, many different things. Even from an efficiency standpoint, we have the variable displacement oil pump to go and make that powertrain deliver to that level. And one thing with that diesel, right, it's every diesel engine in a pickup has those performance values, 475, 1050, right? It's not like an optional upgrade. So we're proud of the fact that, hey, any diesel buyer gets that premium performance and capability. Yeah. And then we combine that with the 10R 140 transmission. My gosh, back in the day, there were times where the 6-speed didn't have an optimum final drive delivery to get what you've experienced this year in the Golden Hitch. In fact, in our prior, I think it was 2017, there was the F350 diesel, right? It was surprising to you, Andre, and also Mr. Truck as far as its maximum speed. And when I saw that, when I saw that, I ended up saying, hey, I want that truck brought back here to Detroit area. And our team went through that truck, and we ended up figuring out what was up with that. And it basically was the truck was up to its performance capability. It's just that we ended up finding that the final drive ratio that we had sent out to that competition wasn't necessarily equivalent to the rest as far as the performance. That truck was actually capable of towing much more trailer, but it didn't perform. So I just wanted to let you know that, hey, when we end up finding a gap in what we expected as far as performance, we take that very seriously, and we learn from that, right? We're always learning within Ford, and this time we ended up sending the revised final drive ratio, and we know how that worked out in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting really competitive out there, right? For a long time, Chevy was stuck at about 24,500 pounds, and now they've really stepped up their game, and it's really created a 3-truck race between Ford, Ram, and Chevy in terms of, you know, who can put out the most performance and who can put out the most reliability. How seriously do you guys look at the other two brands when you're developing a new truck?
Yeah, so we're always, within Ford, we live Super Duty. I personally live Super Duty. I've worked on the Super Duty program going on 25 years now within Ford. And it's really a way of life for me and many members of the team. And so absolutely, we're always looking in heavy duty pickup space, right? Of what's next, what's GM doing, what's Ram doing, and most important for us, in addition. And so it's not like we just look at GM and Ram. We're always looking at our customers, and every aspect is customer feedback. And we even do customer clinics that go and we work on, hey, what's next, and what do you value in your next truck, right? So yes, we do always look at those other competitors just to stay up on the business.
So you're doing something unique because you have your own engine design, right? So you got the diesel, and we'll talk about gas engines in a minute.
Yes.
And then you have sort of Ford designed and built transmission. In this case, the newer Tennspeed as well, the heavy duty transmission. But why did you consider going outside and maybe bringing another brand like an Allison or a ZF or some other technologies and putting them together? What are some of those decisions like?
Yeah, so let me talk through that. We didn't consider those for this 2020 model. And I want to end up unpacking a bit more. When we end up saying the powertrains are developed within Ford, right? The engine and the transmission and the calibration. That's basically how we go and we get that level of integration in performance of those subsystems coming together and delivering that capability. And let me just explain, right? If we ended up comparing purchasing a transmission or engine out of our house and bringing it in, compared to what we ended up doing with the powertrains that we develop ourselves, it basically is before the first hardware is ever built. We have the hardware designers working hand in hand with our calibrators, like the ones that are going to go and deliver the shifting and the engine performance and all of that. And the other aspect is we can go and end up having the needs of the calibration actually fed into the hardware loop and even the design phase, to where, for example, maybe their chosen shift solenoids would only deliver certain shift time. And then we can go and work directly, hand in hand, real time, with our calibration community and say, hey, what if we can only deliver these metrics but not those? And so it's really that hand in hand that I can't emphasize enough, the development within Ford and what that means. And then meanwhile, let me just go one step further. That was just the transmission calibration. There's also the fuel economy guys from efficiency. There's also the noise and vibration guys from within our team is also there's other aspects, weight, many things can all be put in to even the hardware loop. And then in addition to that, we keep it the communication open, where as we finally get the hardware and into the calibration phase, those hardware guys that we worked with can leverage their experience from other programs. So it's so much synergy within the team to go and deliver that really in-house powertrain. And I think you've seen that development. I've also heard from our customers where they are just impressed with really the performance and the integration, and seems that transmission is shifting exactly when many of the customers would expect. So that's how we're able to do it within Ford. And we compare and contrast to if we bought a component outside, like a transmission. Our calibration team would be forced just to take it as what it is. It's a black box, and we can only do so much with that. So I think that's why Ford is unique and different, and why we're able to deliver that level of integration and capability.
You think that the 10-speed is a real game changer? You know, for a long time, it seems like we were stuck at 6, and then all of a sudden, you know, depending on the truck, it went to 8, now we're at 10. Has that really changed how trucks perform, how trucks specifically get fuel economy? Because that seems to be the biggest upside to a 10-speed, right? I mean, the numbers just keep going up in terms of horsepower and torque and fuel economy, which is crazy.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Roman. So it basically is the 10 speed for me is a big game changer because the span that we have between that first and that 10th gear is just amazing, right? And hey, did you know, you guys have mentioned that, hey, 7th gear is, right, the
One-to-one.
1-to-1, right? And then it's 8, 9, and 10 is overdrive. Oh my gosh, we have triple overdrive.
It's crazy.
And then the capability, as you mentioned, with the torque. My gosh, the torque. It used to be back in the day, right? You were even saying you remember back when trucks only hauled 15,000 pounds. My gosh, my Super Duty that I personally own still today that I bought new, it was a 99, right? And it has 500 foot-pounds of torque. Oh my gosh, back in 99, we were so happy with that, right? And even back in that time, if you asked me, hey, Aaron, do you think that there would ever be a day that we get to 10, 50 foot-pounds of torque? Back then, I probably would have said there's no way that we could even do it, right? And so, I look back throughout and working on Super Duty all those years, right? So I've had the experience of delivering the original 7.3 liter diesel, and also the time when we brought the 5.4 liter modular engine, the 6.8 liter to Super Duty, and then the 6 liter diesel with the 5R110, the new 5-speed transmission, right? And then after that was the 6.4 liter, right? With the improvements that we made there. And then finally, recently we developed the Scorpion for 2011 with the 6R140. So all of that history, oh my gosh, all of this that we're talking about, even on the 2020, I just look back and my gosh, it's amazing. And one more thing, Roman, on that is just the capability that comes. I mean, it used to be back in the day that we would say, hey, I have a 5,000 pound trailer and I can't even tell. And it really is now. Getting back to, a lot of customers don't really realize how much weight that is. And I tell you what, the Gauntlet is the world's toughest towing test. And you guys are right in the sense that you push those trucks within less than an inch of their maximum capability, right? And I think that's great that we even have that opportunity to see these comparisons.
Well, thanks. We really appreciate that. Do you think that 10 is the optimal, or are we going to see a day when there's more than 10? You know, at some point, I guess the complexity and the weight of the thing has got to get so great, right, that it becomes almost too onerous to actually go more gears.
Yeah. So Roman, I think it is the sky is the limit, and we almost went through a paradigm shift, right? When we ended up, it's very similar to what I ended up saying back when we were developing the 4-speed and the 5-speed, and then the 6-speed. If we ended up saying, hey, do you guys think that within X years you're going to be developing a 10-speed? We probably would have said, I don't see it happening. I don't even think that we could do that, quite frankly, right? But hey, we can. This is just us spitballing now, right? There's nothing in the works that I'm aware of, but it comes as with the the triple overdrive. Who's to say that in the future, man, if we don't have even an additional gear or one even after that? So Roman, I don't really know at this point what the capability is. What I do know is that for us to go and say, we've done it now, right? We've met the ceiling. I don't think that, quite frankly, will ever happen.
Yeah,
there's no ceiling.
When I started biking, there were 10 speeds, and now there are 20 speeds. So it's common.
Very cool. So let's change gears a little bit. Let's talk about gas engines. You now in the Super Duty, well, you have 4 powertrain choices, right? So the 6.2 V8, the gas engine, is still around. It's still available.
It is. Yep.
And it's
great point.
It's made it to either a 6-speed or a 10-speed, right? You can have it with 2 different transmissions. And then there's the 7.3 liter gas V8, which is a new engine. So tell us a little bit more about kind of the genesis of that. How did the 7.3 get here?
Yeah, so the 7.3 liter, as we know, it's known as Godzilla. It basically is just going back to the very condensed architecture of just having an overhead valve and a central cam. And just the package of that engine is amazing. So much less moving parts, and the capability of that engine, I think, is just great. And it's spot on for the truck user, right? So that engine, as we know, goes in many other programs other than just Super Duty. It ends up in F650 and 750 and vans and even our chassis cabs. So that's really it's a good replacement for our 6.8 liter V10. And we're just, I'm very amazed at the capability of that engine.
So you know, we bought one this year. It's one of our long-term trucks. And right now it's in California getting a suspension upgrade so that we can use it to actually, the plan for that truck is to drive it across country. So we plan to go from hopefully Georgia, if everything permits, all the way to Portland off-road with that truck.
Awesome. That's great, Roman.
Yeah. And so we're super excited to have it. And we're super excited to upgrade the suspension with our friends at Carly. And then we're also doing the camper, right, Andre, which you're going to go pick up in a couple of weeks, hopefully. Who's doing the camper for us, Andre?
Yeah, so it's going to be a giant overland rig, Aaron. Yeah. The truck camper is 4-wheel campers, and they're pretty high end. These campers, they're kind of a folding roof, so where you can extend the roof on this camper, and a lot of features on these particular campers. And Carly suspension, what we're doing there is they have a also fairly premium high-end, not just suspension lift. We're doing approximately 3-inch or 3.5-inch leveling kit, it's called. Okay. But also they're doing a lot more with shock technology. So they're using different
shocks,
settings.
Right? King shock. We're going King shock.
And we're going to be using King shocks with Carly tuning. So this is going to be one big, massive truck.
So I think the reason I bring this up is, a lot of people now make their Super Duty their own, right? This is not just something that we're doing. This is something that a lot of people are doing. What size tires and wheels are we going to be running, Andre?
We're going to be running 37s.
Yeah. Okay. So it's big. And we wanted to actually get the Tremor, but it wasn't available. We needed to purchase it before the end of the year for tax reasons, and they just weren't out. So we wanted the 7.3, we wanted the Tremor. Do you guys take into account people doing crazy stuff like we're doing when you design it? Do you think about that?
We absolutely do think about it, Roman and Andre. We see Super Duties modified all the time, right? Yeah. See them out on the road, all of that. So there's
it's very popular.
Yes, absolutely, very popular. So with the Tremor, you ended up mentioning Tremor. We have, of course, developed the new Tremor, and as we know with that one, it's offered on 250 and 350 and many different trims. It comes in gas and diesel. And it's right in on 35. So I'm going to be very interested to see, right, your rig with the Carly suspension, King shocks, and the Overland camper, right, and see it riding on 37s. I am just always impressed with what our customers do with their trucks after the point of purchase. So,
yeah, it also makes it possible now with the bigger transmission to actually do that, right? Because you don't run out of range when you put the bigger wheels and tires on it. Back in the day, if you had a 6-speed, then you started to run into issues. But with a much bigger transmission, you get much bigger capability to do that. So I think all this is kind of converging at the same time. Do you think it's going to have enough power? Are we going to lack power? Is the 7.3 going to be strong enough?
Well, I think exactly what you ended up just saying, Roman, with the span of the transmission. And that back in the day that it you couldn't do it, right?
Right.
Now with the 7.3 and also the 10-speed, I think it'll be just fine, right, with those 37s.
All right,
yeah,
all right, good.
I can't.
I can't farther back, so he's worried.
Oh, okay. No, I wouldn't worry.
It's in California right now.
Okay.
Well, actually, speaking of the Tremor, so we had a chance of driving it. Stephen Elmer and I, we went to that first drive event in Arizona. We did test drive the new Super Duty Tremors, both gas and diesel. I felt that the gas Tremor, the suspension was a little bit softer. It was a little bit nicer, especially empty. When running empty, that was pretty nice. But I realized something, that the Tremor package, it's not just about the height of the truck and the tires, right? There's a lot more going on inside of that package, which if Roman and I were to reproduce it, it would be quite difficult for us to do, because we're talking about limited slip front differential. We're talking about your trail control system now, which allows you to, slow speed off-road control as far as doing acceleration and braking. So that system is there, and then breather tubes for the axles, so you can ford more water. I mean, it sounds simple, but I don't think it's as simple as it sounds.
That's right, Andre. And there's even some more, right? Like rock crawl mode and other things. So yeah, we can end up, the customers that don't choose the tremor, they can go and maybe they would go aftermarket like what you're describing to do. But the tremor, right? It's really a balance, a fine balance within Super Duty of having the towing capability that our customers would expect, right? And also having that next level of off-road capability, right? So that was really our focus coming forward and developing that tremor package.
You know what I want to see?
What?
I want to see a Super Duty Raptor.
Okay.
You know what's interesting in the tremor? So for the longest time, people kept telling us, why doesn't Ram put a diesel into the Power Wagon, of course, which is a direct competitor to the tremor. Now you guys have actually done that. Was it difficult? Did you think long and hard before doing a diesel tremor? Because what you're doing with the diesel tremor, of course, you're putting a lot more weight on the front because that engine is much heavier, and you're putting a lot more torque through the system, and you've got a lot more towing capability. Was that something that you guys said, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing, or was that something that from the start you said, you know what, we're going to do a tremor in the diesel version?
Yeah, Roman, it was right from the start. When we were just sketching out the program, there was mindset that to put the diesel in, and it really is. You end up seeing the footprint of tremor, right? It's 250 and 350, and all those trims that I mentioned, and even both gas and diesel engines, and then combine that with just the overall capability, right? So at 15,000 pound conventional towing, it's got a great gooseneck towing, and it has the payload that's necessary for doing the work that Super Duty customers want to do.
Yeah, that's not easy, right? Because the things it takes to make a truck off-road worthy are very different from the things it takes to make it tow worthy. And you're kind of at two different spectrums, right? It's kind of the big tires, the added weight of all the bigger stuff you need so that you can go off-road. Also, then at the same time decreases your towing ability. So was that a compromise that you had to make to have that sort of a vehicle that could do both those things?
Yeah, in the end, it was a balance, right?
Yeah.
As you ended up saying, Roman, it is a balance between being able to tow and sign off SAE 2807 to those requirements, and then also having off-road capability, right? So it was definitely a balance, but we did achieve those numbers and the expectations of having those tremors out there doing that level of work. Like 21.9 for a gooseneck on that particular configuration, with the capability that it has off-road, I think is great in both worlds, right?
Yeah, it's pretty astounding, actually.
Yeah, for towing, cool. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Oh, no. It's great. I wanted to run one more thought by you, Aaron.
Okay.
Talking about gas versus diesel. So now you have a choice of gas engines, right? You have a 6.2 and a 7.3, and the 7.3 comes with additional cost, right? So it's about a $2,000 upgrade from the base truck, and then you have another $9,000 step up to the diesel, right? When you're going all the way to the maximum capability there, maximum power and torque. But the gas engines are becoming more capable. So the 7.3 has more torque, 475 pound-feet of torque, right from the factory. Do you see the diesel importance of that powertrain diminishing and the gas engine kind of going up in importance and popularity, or how do you see that split?
Yeah, so thank you for that. I do see the capability of the gas, as we know, right? It's 430 horsepower and 475 foot-pounds of torque for that 7.3, and it's pretty amazing. And it really is performs very well even with towing. But I tell you, my mindset, and I think our customers' mindset, is that if you're towing quite often, I think many times we talk, if you're towing more than or more than 50% of the time, and performance is an important factor for you, it's just no sweat with a diesel, right? I think you've seen that comparison. Yeah, we could definitely do with a gas, but the diesel is just great in its performance and capability, and just every aspect of that. And I think from a cost comparison, right, with the 7.3 being able to do its work and the cost upgrade, I think the customers, right, that are wondering gas and diesel, a factor to realize is the initial investment up front, and then the delta in maintenance for the diesel versus the gas. And it really comes down to how long are you going to keep the truck, and there's an aspect of resale value as well, right? So there's many different factors, and I haven't really found the head of the pin as far as which one to go to.
So let me just clarify that, right? So what you're saying is the diesel costs more, but it also then resells for more, right? Because it's worth more when you go to resell it, and then diesel is actually more expensive to maintain because you got to pay a diesel mechanic, which is more expensive than a gasoline mechanic. But depending on the cost of fuel, the diesel can be less expensive to run if we're at that point. Right now, obviously, we're at a point where gasoline is extremely cheap.
Yes. Yes.
And so that's a hard one to guess because you don't know where it'll be a year from now. And then depending on how long you keep it, I suspect the diesel will also have longer lifespan, just because diesels tend to be overbuilt and they tend to last a lot longer. But then you got to replace injectors, and those are expensive, right? At about 150. When do you replace injectors on your trucks? When are those?
Sorry, Ron, I'm not aware of.
You never replace them.
Interval. A week. Yeah. Sorry.
You never have to replace it. In a Super Duty Entre, you never replace injectors.
Well, I had an old Duramax, and they replaced my injectors. It was original Duramax.
Okay. Yeah. So between the gas and the diesel discussion, I think it really comes down to my advice that I give to anybody that asks me is it depends on how heavy you're towing, number one, and then how often you're towing, if it's more than 50% of the time, and then really what are your performance expectations, right? And if you're okay with the fact that the gas isn't going to do it as well as a diesel, then maybe the gas is a consideration. But for those customers that are coming from a diesel and they expect that diesel performance, man, I think the diesel is the only choice. So it's really hard to say one versus the other. It's can only point out the factors to consider, and then customer makes their final decision.
Well, we've done our testing. So we ran a 7.3 Godzilla engine on a fuel efficiency loop, and I believe we got around between 15 to 16 miles per gallon unladen. This is just running on the highway. And then we put the tremor, the diesel tremor, on a very similar loop, and we even took it to Moab on a longer trip, and that was about 19.2. So you're talking about 15.5 to 19.2. I mean, that's a big span. And actually, kind of, I'm amazed that you can get a heavy truck, a big truck, with all of the equipment that it has, including the emissions controls, right?
Yes.
And getting that, high 19s or, high teens from it.
What was our fuel economy pulling up the mountain, Andre? What do we get
2.4.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's more like it.
Well, when you're pulling 30,000 pounds up 7% grade and you're doing it for 8 minutes, then you are doing some major work. You're doing some heavy work.
And during that work, it's the cooling that's needed for the engine, getting that cool air in, and then all of the calibration and focus that went there. And I think, Roman, I remember seeing the clip where our development team was out at the Ike, and you were stopping by saying, "Hey, I wonder what they're testing," right? And they
I remember that. Yep. We stopped up. We pulled up to them.
We're saying at that time, I bet they're testing the 10-speed. Yeah.
Well, we didn't know what you guys were testing, but I guess Roman recognized you, and you guys recognized Roman. So
yes, we did. Yeah, and I basically, man, there's times where it's like, man, if they only knew what we are.
Please tell us, Aaron. Feel free to tell us what's happening in the future.
Yeah, like just imagine back in that little bubble of time, Roman, when you were driving up and you were waving high, we knew, right? It was 475, 1050, 10-speed transmission, and all the capability. It's almost like we live in a little time capsule, right? And the last thing that we would ever do is we can't talk about it, right? So it's just funny for me to like reminisce about it now after it's happened after the fact, you know.
Yeah, you're like 2 years ahead of us, and probably 5 years or 10 years in planning, but that's a whole different thing.
That's very interesting.
It's a fun business. It's a fun business. Yes.
So I want to make a suggestion, Aaron.
Okay.
And I want to see what you think. We've tested all the trucks recently, especially for 2020, including Ram and GM, as we talked about. And one thing that I've noticed is not all manufacturers give the driver every gauge, so to speak. And one gauge that Ram gives their driver is the exhaust brake kind of gauge that kind of tells you how progressive, how much exhaust brake the truck is giving you on the way down. And I did not find that gauge in the Ford.
Okay.
And I wish I had it.
All right, Andre, thank you. We'll take that into account, and we'll see what we can do there. No promises always, right? That's what we say to Mr. Truck as well. But thank you for that input. And just like everything else from a Ford standpoint, when we're getting that feedback from our customers, we think it's very valuable. So let me ask you one question on the gauge, right?
Yes.
So the Ram has the gauge, but just from a usage standpoint, from your view, what would that provide? It provides a level of what understanding?
I can give you a perfect example. Their gauge measures it in horsepower.
Okay.
And to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense because, okay, so it takes horsepower to break the truck down. But what I love about that is it shows, 100%, 75, 50, 25, and gradation between that percentage. And when you're going down the mountain with 30,000 pounds, which I also did with Mr. Truck, and you don't know exactly how much brake you have, you're guessing at it. Okay, you're looking at your tachometer. You're saying, okay, I'm at about 2,500 RPM. I wonder what my turbo is doing. I wonder exactly what percentage, it's running at. But if you have I don't care as much about horsepower on the brake as much as how much of it am I using?
So, Andre, what you're saying is it's a safety thing, right? When you're at 100%, that's when you get sweaty palms and you're like, oh my God, there's nothing left, right? Whereas when you're at 25%, you're like, yeah, I've got a lot of capability left, and so you're a little bit more relaxed and you're a little bit more comfortable.
Well, it's actually a little bit more than that. When I'm at 100% brake, I know that the truck is doing its best. There is no more capability left in that brake, and maybe I need to use the brake pedal. But I don't know where that point is, generally speaking. So and then if I'm at 25% brake, I'm like, oh yeah, I have plenty of capability left over. Let's just run it. So, but to me, as far as a trucker, the more gauges, the better. You guys at Ford, you tell us what gear we're in. Always, which some people say, oh, you don't need to know which gear you're in. There's 10 of them. Who cares? Who cares which gear you're in?
I love that. I love knowing what gear I'm in. I think that's one of the best gauges and the most useful ones. And even if I don't need it, I just like looking at it because I'm curious. It's just it's not necessarily a work thing. It's just cool to see what gear the truck is running in because there's so many now. So before you were in one of 6, big deal, but now you're in one of 10.
Yeah, and I think, so Aaron, just from my standpoint, the more information that driver has, especially over a heavy vehicle, the more information the driver has, the better probably. That's just my standpoint.
Yeah, let me ask you this. I know Kent. This was Kent's big deal, Mr. Truck's big deal. He always thought that the last generation Super Duty was just too tall, right? He felt that it was just hard to load stuff into the bed. And then I think you guys, for this generation, either listen to him, or that's what he would say, or you listen to your customers. That's what I would say. And you lowered it a couple inches. Was that a decision that, or how did you come to that decision to actually take it down a little bit?
Well, it's very much right what you just said, Roman. It's we leveraged our customers' feedback. In fact, in the conference room that we were discussing it, we actually played the video that Mr. Truck was talking about. My gosh, this truck is so high, right? So,
no way, really?
Yes. So all of these things factor in, right? We're always watching what's out there on the Super Duty and in heavy duty trucks. And yeah, that is used as leverage within the team and within our management team to go and make those decisions. So we appreciate any and all the feedback that we get on the trucks. Absolutely.
And it also has to do with kind of the trailer loading, right? If you have a gooseneck trailer coming in or a fifth wheel, and if the bed of the truck is too high, which our modified Ford F-250 will be,
yeah, for sure.
Then if you put a trailer into it, you have less kind of articulation available to you, basically, and you know, it becomes more difficult. So I mean, that's natural. So it's a balance between, you know, giving yourself clearance on the bottom, but also being able to tow the trailer on top.
That's right. Fifth wheel and the gooseneck trailers, right? Especially with the fifth wheels, that's really threading the needle, taking a truck to that height, right? So, yeah, go ahead.
Here's another question, and I think our viewers will appreciate this. When we got Godzilla, the first thing we did was add a new exhaust to it, which has now been cut off, unfortunately, because of the suspension. But you know, I mean, you want to hear that engine, and obviously, as a OEM, you guys, you know, are not in the business of creating performance loud exhaust, right? I take it you probably leave that for the customer. But when we did it, how many resonators did that exhaust system have? Do you remember, Andre?
Well, it's, I think, almost 3. They're different sizes. Right. I mean, it looks very complicated, right? I mean, the exhaust system is not easy.
So if you're out there changing your exhaust like we did, what's the perfect amount of resonators to take off?
Yeah, so Roman, it basically is, we might ask, hey, how did the 7.3 liter exhaust system from the factory get to having 3 resonators?
Yeah.
It basically is, right on this point, there is legal drive-by noise requirements that we have to meet, right? So it basically is those requirements we definitely meet, and that is a portion of why those resonators exist. And I think it is, it drives us to having quiet exhaust. And I know, Andre, even you've said is that, hey, the 7.3 liter with the exhaust that has been put on your truck, right? It, without the resonators, it still has doesn't have any annoying drones while driving, but it also has a nice tone, nice deep tone. So I think
we removed 1 resonator, so we didn't go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
We're not straight piping this. I really wanted to straight pipe it and just, you know, just go all out. But we can't. I mean, obviously, a lot of people who live near a highway or in the rural environment, they don't appreciate, you know, really loud exhaust brakes or really loud gas trucks, you know, going down the road, and we understand that. So,
and it's more than that, Andre. It's also if you're in the truck, right? So if you have a very loud truck, it might be fun on a Friday night, but if you have to cross country, right, and that thing is just droning on, it gets really old really quick.
It does. Absolutely, it does. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those things where when you're driving for 8 hours a day, yeah, you have to be comfortable.
So we have this exhaust guy who's been doing exhaust forever, and he's just a magician. He's really good. I mean, he knows it backward and forward, and he put on this extremely, you know, beautiful dual tip chrome exhaust that came out just in the right place, and it made me so happy. Put such a huge smile on my face. And then I get a call from Andre. Yeah, the suspension won't clear the new exhaust, so they cut it off. And I was like, oh, good God, just the one thing that I was hoping we'll fix it, but still. So now you're gonna have to drive it back from California with, you know,
with no tips. But Roman, Remember, King shocks, okay?
Yeah,
Remember,
I
so
know.
King shocks.
So that'll be the future, is getting the exhaust back to the way it was, to where it's just like you guys are so proud of it.
Yeah, yeah, and then of course, we have to figure out whether we should actually void the warranty and supercharge it. I'm not a big fan of that, but this is a show truck, so we might have to actually. I think who makes a supercharger for it now, Andre?
Well, Whipple is working on it really hard.
Yeah.
And I think there's some other guys working on it, but as far as we know, Whipple is a little bit ahead of the game, maybe compared
Which
to
begs
others.
the question: why didn't we just buy the diesel?
Why didn't we?
Yeah, if you're going to supercharge the Godzilla, just go for the diesel, right? I mean, that's basically what you're doing.
It is basically what you're doing, but we didn't have as much budget to begin with, and we wanted that Godzilla to test it. It's a brand new engine, so we always go for the new and see how the new stuff works.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, we took all of the off-road trucks, including the Tremor, the Power Wagon, and the GMC off-road, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of big diesel trucks off-road. It's just they're very heavy, and they feel like they're towing rigs that have been compromised to go off-road. But I was impressed by the Super Duty. It did really well, for something that is designed to tow as much weight as it does, to be able to take that off-road and not have it feel like it's, I don't know, how would you best describe it? Like, like a gorilla in a dandelion patch. It's doing good.
Wow, that's quite an image there. So I just wanted to wrap up the show really quick with a little bit talking about the technology that's in the new truck. And you mentioned the steering overlay. Aaron, can you talk a little bit more, explaining what the electric assist is, and also how it integrates? Like you talked about backing up the truck with a trailer, all that stuff.
Yes, absolutely, Andre. So the electronic motor is between the eye shaft and this. It's in the eye shaft, mounted on top of the conventional hydraulic steering gear. Okay, so it really is when the customer is driving one of our trucks with that system installed, they're putting input to the steering wheel, and meanwhile that motor down at the eye shaft is also helping the customer turn the steering wheel, taking some of that effort off. That's why we end up seeing a vast improvement in just parking lot efforts to actually turn the wheel. And then in addition to this, that motor that can provide input to the steering gear when we go to using Pro Trailer Backup Assist Control knob. It basically just takes control of the steering system and provides that direction that's necessary, depending on the trailer angle, to get that trailer to go the desired direction via that knob. So it really is got many different advantages, right? There's a driving advantage, there's a parking advantage, there's other air state compensation that comes with that system, right? As far as active nibble compensation, it also has returnability. After going around a corner, it'll actually help the steering wheel come back to straight. So many different things that system will provide as far as benefit to the customer.
But you don't see, you left the hydraulic system there. Is that because of the weight capacity, or why couldn't you go all electric, for example?
Yeah, so we did consider many of those alternatives, and we did go the route of having electric over hydraulic. It's very similar to like the braking system on the real heavy trailers. The hydraulic system does the work, and the electronics as an overlay to that system can really help the customer, right? And then also in separate dimension, it can actually provide the control to that steering system for Pro Trailer Backup Assist. So we did consider going full electric, but the power drive that's necessary for a full electric steering system on a Super Duty with snowplow capability, etc., is just immense. Need the flux capacitor in order to provide that level of power.
Did you say flux capacitor?
Yes.
Are we going back to the future, or what are we doing?
Remember, they're 2 years ahead of us, Andre.
Okay.
Hey, how important are cameras to Ford and towing? It seems to be a game changer for a lot of us out there who struggle with knowing where the truck is, either on the highway or when we're backing up. How important are cameras? Do you see that as something that you guys are going to be focusing on or are focusing on?
Yeah, cameras are very important, Roman. Cameras are critical, even the level of cameras that we have today. We know that with towing, the trailers are very big, and they have many blind spots, not only while driving down the road, but also maneuvering. So we have down the aspect of even getting the biggest trailer into the tightest location, right, with the Pro Trailer Backup Assist. And cameras we see are ever increasing as far as importance for that towing experience.
So how many cameras is too many?
Yeah, I think it gets back to the same question on the transmission gears. How many is too many? I don't know that there ever is a limit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the last question, and this is something that actually Chevy brought out in their last program. They're working, I don't know if they're working, but they're trying to kind of standardize what the trailer manufacturers are doing, right? Because right now you have trailer manufacturers, and there are probably hundreds of them, dozens of the big ones, right, that all have different braking, all have different trailer controller modules. And it seems like all that comes initially from you guys, right? Because it's the truck manufacturer that eventually has to integrate with the trailer manufacturer. Do you guys work with trailer manufacturers? Is there a standard that you might work with Chevy on, so that we don't have this kind of just the Wild West right now of trailer controllers and brakes and all the stuff that's out there? It's just all over the place.
Yes, absolutely, Roman. So we do work with trailer manufacturers because our business models go hand in hand in the sense of, hey, if the truck is towing the trailer, it's exactly as you pointed out as far as just integrating those two systems together. So absolutely, we do work with trailers manufacturers. So, hey, one other thing, guys, wanted to tell you about the one thing we didn't mention about the trimmer. We've demonstrated during the media event adding a winch, right? And I think, Roman, even when we revealed the trimmer last summer, there was a question on the winch, and at the time we didn't have it fully in hand. And so we ended up revealing at the media event that the winch will be coming. Mm-hmm. And we ended up saying back then that, hey, mid-year, and we continue to progress that winch offering. And if it weren't for this coronavirus, we would be opening up the order bank very soon, essentially within X days. But with the coronavirus, it's a bit delayed. But just wanted to let you know that winches, as far as offering and availability, are going to be very soon, where the dealers and customers can go and add that to trimmers. And it's going to be available on diesel and gas as well. So with that diesel, it was a challenge for package, but it worked out nicely.
Yeah, I mean, it must mess with the air intake, right? I mean, you're putting a big chunk of metal right where all the air comes in.
That's right. It does, Roman. But we've done our testing and development, and it's okay. And it's good looking back, right? Remember when we were talking about the cooling system and the grills that we ended up designing? It basically is the winch can be added and without impacting performance. So great.
So when's the snorkel coming?
Sorry, say again. I just didn't hear.
Snorkel coming? Yeah,
when's the snorkel coming? Well, we're always working on those things. We already have 33-inch water fording, so who knows what's next, Roman?
Yeah, snorkel, man. Gotta have two things: winch and a snorkel.
We had a few questions about the winch. People are saying, should I wait to buy a trimmer? Should I not wait? Well, first of all, it's only available for the trimmer because of the height, right?
Yes.
And then the crash protection, etc. And then, but you could add a winch later. You could buy a truck now, right? The trimmer, and add a winch later.
That's correct. Yeah, there's no guarantees, right? Always, but there is work as soon as we end up completing this cycle for having the winch available on tremors. There's a line of sight for having it available as a dealer accessory, right?
Okay.
Can be purchased for tremors that are already in existence, and having those winches to be as an accessory.
Yeah, and I think it's important to have accessories as well. All kinds of accessories, not just winches, but steps, different wheel packages, maybe tires. Guys love to modify their trucks, and I think the more
Little gals, Andre,
and gals and gals love modifying their trucks too. Absolutely.
well, I think I've asked enough stupid questions. And thank you for the honest answers. And if you guys enjoyed the show, then let us know in the comments below. Let us know if there's some questions that we should have asked or we didn't ask. And Aaron, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us and our audience. I'll let you close it up, Andre.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron, very much. And of course, we all wish to talk about future products, but obviously, we don't get a chance to. But it will come when it will come, right?
That's right. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Aaron, very much.
Well, thank you, Andre and Roman.
One word: snorkel. Remember, snorkel.
Okay.
No.
I have some great input that I'm going to take.
It's a high-mounted air intake, Roman.
Desert air intake. That's what Taylor calls it. That's right. You don't want to go snorkel because then you're making water fording promises.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, guys.